position.
Yeah, you sound good. No, hold on. Let me get the
Hello, everyone, and welcome to War of the Stars, a Star Wars podcast, coming to you, as always, from deep within the Outer Rim, far beyond the watchful eyes of the Galactic Empire. My name is, of course, John Mark Tolley, and joining me, as always, are my two co-hosts,
Garrett K. Jones.
And Brian
and
Karasik.
yeah, all right, fellas, how are you today?
I'm good.
It's a good day. I'm knee deep in the Acolyte these days. It's a great time to be a Star Wars fan with a Disney Plus subscription.
Indeed. Well, as we mentioned last week, we are going through and week by week doing a little bit different topics. And since this is the second week of the month, we are doing our character breakdown. And this week it is Papa Palps, Uncle Sheev, aka the Senate himself, Emperor Palpatine. One thing I want to do with these character breakdowns, is because I think for a lot of these characters, most people know somewhat of the backstory of them. Palpatine, there's been, books written, stuff like that. But I want to get into more of just the character itself, how the character is portrayed. And with Palpatine, one thing I want to talk about is this idea of character archetypes, and especially villain archetypes with Palpatine, because I think, especially, we've always seen these kinds of characters before, but nowadays it seems to be more prevalent of this idea of the sympathetic villain. And you just mentioned earlier, a good example of that you just mentioned earlier with the Acolyte, with the character of May, of being a character that's supposed to be built up to be a very sympathetic villain. But with Palpatine, and you've said this before, Brian, he's almost evil for evil's sake. He's the classic mustache twirling villain. And he's just fun for that reason, I believe. Of just a villain who's just evil for evil's sake. Like, there's no redeeming quality about this person whatsoever.
We're not talking about Killmonger avenging generations of racial inequality. We're not talking about Thanos attempting to reduce the consumption of resources planet-wide or galaxy-wide. We're talking about a character who literally cackles himself to death twice because he's in the process of, he thinks, just destroying good for the sake of doing so.
Yeah.
And even in the novel, we'll get into it, but even in the novel, we're not given much of a reason why.
No.
He's not.
He's for power. I mean, that's really.
I don't think he's. I mean, while there is a case for evil for the sake of evil, I don't think it's that shallow of a description. I mean, think about this, okay? Even after his death and his resurrection in the throughout the franchise, he is what I refer to as a true believer in his cause. Okay, he, based on what I know of, he's pretty much been brought up in the Sith way, as far as I'm aware, and in doing so, he is fully bought in and doubled down on the Sith ideology, and he is living that out through duplicity, through machinations, up the yin yang. And so he fully is invested in this cause of wiping out the Jedi because of the millennia old rivalry between the two factions.
Yeah. But here's my question is, from a character standpoint, does Palpatine know he's evil?
No, for sure.
I think he knows he's evil. Look
at his wardrobe.
Yeah.
Hey,
and he's so petty. He builds his throne room on top of the burned ruins of the Jedi Temple for no reason other than to screw you, Jedi.
Yeah.
They're all dead. It's for mostly there's, who is this for? Just him.
Well, yeah.
think about this though. If you look at real history, what do ancient civilizations do? They build on the rubble of the civilizations that they've destroyed.
Yeah.
Rome is a great example of this.
True.
And even before they became an empire, before they became a dictatorship, prior to the fall, we see this in countless civilizations where they raise the civilization that came before, build atop of it, and then they keep going. And at some point, that civilization gets wiped out and gets built upon as well.
Yeah,
I have this image of Palpatine arguing with a contractor that his toilet has to be exactly on Jocastanu's seat. Like that's where the Jedi librarian said, "There, it's got to be here, right here."
That's in a library, no less.
That's right, exactly. Like burden down the library, nobody knows where it is, but he's got to know like those coordinates. That's exactly where he wants to be doing his business.
Yes.
I always think, okay, so just to back it up a little bit, Palpatine's backstory, if anybody listening isn't aware, is told in great detail in James Luceno's novel Darth Plagueis, which was written just a wampa hair shy of being Disney canon. It almost made it in. And Luceno has said he considers it half canon. He kind of tried to sneak it in. Like if you read Luceno's later book that is in Disney canon, Tarkin, he refers to events in Darth Plagueis and introduces characters that were in the Darth Plagueis novel. So like there are sections of the Tarkin novel, canonical, that refer to the Legends novel. And so he did the best he could. But in that novel, of course, we meet Palpatine as essentially a freshman in college. And this is something I always think is funny. This is when I'm bragging on Palpatine. He's such a potent character that he is the main character of someone else's novel. The novel is Darth Plagueis, but that book is about Darth Plagueis for roughly 1/5 of the novel. Once we meet Palpatine, that book is about Palpatine. I mean, Plagueis is there, but it is the story of Palpatine's rise from age 18 until 17 minutes into Episode 1 when he is anointed as Chancellor of the Senate. Because that's the final chapter of the Darth Plagueis book takes place on the eve of his coronation, if you will. But this is a character, as I'm fond of saying, who is the villain of movies he's not in. Rogue, Solo, Episode 4, they're all driven by, Palpatine is still an overarching presence in these movies. He is powerful enough that if you look at it from a certain point of view, Palpatine is the only person able to kill Palpatine is Palpatine. Twice. He's defeated once by his own, maybe indirectly, but he's defeated once by his own inability to predict Vader's moves. But at the end of 9, when he's, presumably once and for all killed, it's his lightning that kills him. I'm like, guy, quit shooting the lightning. like that's same thing in Episode 3. The reason he's so disfigured is he keeps blasting Windu with the lightning, even though Windu is reflecting it back. That's not made very clear in the novel. It's in the movie. I mean, in the movie, it appeared to me anyway when I was watching it that it was the act of the lightning that was like so much force was going out of Palpatine and just withered him. But in the novel, it's clearly stated that it was his lightning reflecting back that did all that. And then at the end of 9, it's his own lightning reflected back that reduces him to dust, Voldemort style. So only Palpatine can kill Palpatine. And I became frustrated by this leading up to Rise of Skywalker when it seemed every fan theory about the villain took something away from Palpatine. Oh, Snoke must be Plagueis. Okay, so if Snoke is Plagueis, this teaches us two things. If Snoke is Plagueis, then Palpatine couldn't tell live from dead at the most important part of his entire career. He killed Plagueis. What do you do? Just hit him over the head and run away? Like, he's probably dead, right? And just never check again. It would cast Sidious as an incompetent at murder, which he's not, and it would also cast Palpatine as kind of a fool in that he's never able to detect his own master through the Force for 30 years, and that all kinds of, and like the Darth Jar Jar thing, like every fan theory was like, how can we make Palpatine less powerful metatextually? And it was kind of funny to see.
Yeah, I gotta say I was a kid when I first watched Empire Strikes Back, and when I saw that Vader had someone above him, that kind of that was revolutionary for me because I'm like, holy crap! The the biggest, baddest dude in the galaxy is being controlled by somebody else. And here I thought, as a kid, hearing Leia, mouth off to Tarkin about holding Vader's leash. No, Tarkin wasn't the one holding Vader's leash. It was Palpatine all along.
Mm-hmm.
And
that was a golden moment for me as well, because I had been aiming for a Vader costume. Now, in 1980, I was 6 years old, and my Vader costume was a plastic mask and a smock that said Star Wars. You remember the 1980s era Halloween costumes. I bet everybody listening can smell it right now. But once I learned that Vader had a boss who was an evil wizard, I'm like, guys, I'm way evil wizard, way more than like giant warrior. Like, I know what I'm working with, so buy me a bathrobe. I'm all set.
Yeah. Yeah.
But to get back to what you said, Garrett, he is indeed a true believer, and we see his training, and we see essentially his upbringing, because his first real act in the dark side is to kill his entire family. Spoiler alert, on a starship, and then he panics and like radios Plagueis, and Plagueis sends people to pick him up, and he sets a course for that ship to go into a star. And then, but nobody knew that Sheev was on that ship, so he just ends up being this tragic victim of a family tragedy and inherits everything. Which, not for nothing, we know that he's not exactly paycheck to paycheck, but he's described in his youth as having killed someone in a street racing accident in a speeder, and his dad just like covered it up. So there's some money there. But later on, more specifically, his dad, Kozinga Palpatine, describes the society of Naboo is said to have 5 pillars that hold it up, and one of those pillars is House Palpatine. So Palpatine is one of the 5 most powerful, most wealthy families on the planet of Naboo, a notoriously wealthy planet, and he inherited everything. But we don't see why he takes that on board. Like, yes, he's absolutely a true believer, Garrett. I would love to hear more. We don't see a lot of Palpatine's inner monologue in that novel, and he is a kid. Like, people make jokes in episode 3. Anakin's like, well, may as well be evil. I'll go kill a bunch of kids. Like, we don't see Anakin really make that choice or why he does on screen. And in the novel, we see Palpatine completely buy into, like, he takes very personally what the Jedi did to the Sith, despite that it happened 1,000 years before he was born. He's just like, whatever. Like, yeah, I'm here for it. Let's be the Emperor. It's fine.
Yeah.
When he kills Plagueis, incidentally, at the end of that novel, he contemptuously lists one of the reasons he's killing him, as Plagueis has stated that his plan was for Palpatine to be sort of the main chancellor, and for Plagueis in his role, in his civilian role, for Plagueis to be sort of co-chancellor. And he was talking about the rule of 2 changing its meaning, and two Sith working together eternally. And Palpatine's like, yes, that sounds great, while planning a killing all along. But Palpatine contemptuously basically spits in Plagueis' face for even considering that. He's like, the rule of 2 was set up for a reason, and this is that reason. Now, once he ends the Jedi Order, of course, Palpatine is comfortable ending the rule of 2. He talks in his journals about the rule of 1. He never intended Vader to have any chance to take over.
Right. Which that brings me to an interesting point with Palpatine, is his choices of the three people that we see as his apprentices. Of course, the first one we see is Maul, which for that one it makes sense, for why he would choose Maul. And how, if you read any of the novels, of how he basically tortured Maul. And that's how he's able to keep him
from infancy.
Yeah. But the one that always baffled me was Dooku. Just the age, of, he was almost like, I mean, obviously, Palpatine's playing the long game. So at that point, he's already has his eyes on Anakin. And it's almost like he's this old guy right here. He's just a placeholder.
Yes, exactly. Dooku is a bookmark.
Yeah, because he's never going to be, in a position to overthrow Palpatine. He's just as old as Palpatine, if not older.
Very conveniently in charge of the separatist armies, though.
Yes. it was just very, very. And then like how he just manipulates every. I mean, you're talking about someone who is 5 steps ahead, and I really enjoyed seeing Palpatine in the Clone Wars because you see all these different, especially when you see him as Darth Sidious, and just how he's manipulating everything and just behind the scenes, and
he coordinates Ahsoka's removal from the Jedi Council, like as an afterthought, like just over coffee. Like, oh, by the way, we need to frame her for murder and get her kicked out because as I've mentioned, Ahsoka present completely throws off the chance.
Even to the point of, if you look at Order 66, and you have in the not the final season, but the season before I think it was season 6, when one of the clones is the chip malfunctions, and he starts. If you read of all of the different orders that were put in there, one was specifically put in to remove the Chancellor. So he was so thinking that he could go in and say, like, yes, there's this order here, but look, there's also an order in case I got out of hand. Look, there was that order right here. I mean,
did you guys see the conversation in the Vader comic books? Vader is discussing with a stormtrooper, a former clone or a clone who's now a stormtrooper. He asks that stormtrooper, was there a similar order in place regarding me? And the clone doesn't answer, and Vader kills him immediately. And I've
seen that comic.
The narrator states that he killed the stormtrooper not because he failed to answer, but because Vader knew that question would be reported back, and he did not want Palpatine to know he was even thinking down that hallway.
Yeah. Well, and
Palpatine is a master manipulator. I mean, there is no better.
Well, and what's interesting is if you look at the way that he manipulates his apprentices, each one is an extension of himself in some facet. Maul is his primal anger and rage at the Jedi. It's it's the animalistic side of him. The Dooku is his pride and his arrogance, because Dooku also came from a wealthy family. Despite the fact that he should have been giving all that stuff up as a Jedi, he held on to it and retained his nobility.
Which does that work out for the Jedi?
Right. And which is interesting, considering the fact that Palpatine at no point gave up the nobility of his family. Yeah. He held on to all that wealth and cycled it through building even more consolidated finances. But then because there's a point piggybacking off of that where it in The Force Unleashed, where Starkiller makes the comment of saying, like, he starts listing a bunch of things and he talks about credits. He's like, none of this means anything to the Emperor. Like, he doesn't care. Like, he has it. It's something for him to use and play with as he wills. Yeah. And that's kind of that arrogance at play. But then Vader is the fear that Palpatine has. Palpatine makes it very clear to Anakin in the opera, what does everyone have a fear of? Someone having more power than them.
Dying.
Yeah.
Also, yes. Mm-hmm. But I mean, he lays out his own fears of dying, of being killed, of the fact that of the retribution that he visited upon his own master being done to him. And so each of these are aspects of himself. But if you look at what ends up happening with Dooku and Asajj Ventress, for example, Ventress was brought in to she was kind of a proto version of the Inquisitors, because she had been a Jedi, she had been turned to the dark side, wasn't exactly a Sith, and she hadn't been fully corrupted. And eventually, when her usefulness ran out, Palpatine said, "Okay, cut her loose, kill her," and that's when Dooku tried to have her assassinated.
I would semantics perhaps, but I would say that she was cut off well before her usefulness ran out. So
probably.
because she was too useful. If anything, there's a conversation in
Yeah.
Clone Wars, I think, right? Sidious is just like, you have become a rival. Like you have an apprentice now, don't you? And
Yeah.
he was like, oh no.
He says that to Maul.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's
when
right with
he's
the Dark
four.
Sun. Ah,
Yeah,
thank you. Ooh, embarrassing. Gotta watch Clone Wars
by
again now.
that
It's
point,
fun.
Maul had come back and he was making his own plans to get revenge on his old master for leaving him to die. And eventually, well, it started off as just wanting to get revenge on Kenobi, which is why he trained his brother Savage.
That we got to cover that relationship. The Kenobi Maul romance is just
Kenobi. Sorry, I can't do it. I can't do it justice.
You're not Kenobi. I was expecting Kenobi.
Yeah, the thing I find very interesting is that he looked even with the Inquisitors, there came a point where like while Vader would kill them if they failed for whatever reason, if Palpatine caught wind of anything that Vader might be doing with the Inquisitors or any other apprentice, he would face Vader and say, "You have to kill your apprentice now." He would have to kill this Inquisitor.
I love that whole arc. It was an entire trade paperback where Vader, after the failure of Episode 4, Palpatine basically tells Vader to his face, "I am planning to replace you with one of these 4 people," and introduces them to him. And then like leaves Vader to see what happens. And Vader systematically sends their corpses to Palpatine. Like, the Mon Cal with the full cyborg conversion and the Force sensitive twins and all that. Like, it's a really cool aspect of like Palpatine he twists that knife in Vader amazingly well. Just in Lords of the Sith, they're sitting around having a barbecue at a campfire after they've crashed on this planet. And Vader just out of nowhere, Palpatine says like, "So you killed all your friends, huh?" It just completely brings it up to like, let's talk about how you killed your wife, right?
Yeah.
Sucks, huh?
Yeah. And I think that's what's so insidious about Sidious is I know, right? Is with Vader, we'll have to do a deep dive on Vader, but this is in a way, this is not maybe not Palpatine's fault, but he led to this. Is there was a comic where Vader is fighting Maul, and it's this whole trial. And
Tales issue 10.
I think so. And at the end of it, he kills Maul, and Maul says, "What can you hate that much?" And Vader says, "Myself." And that's Palpatine. That's all the manipulation of Palpatine, twisting everything. And you look at everything that all the other apprentices, and you can see the regression for each one of them of what Yoda says of the path to the dark side: fear, anger, hate, suffering. And Vader is the culmination of that, of suffering. When he's in that suit, not just physically suffering, but mentally, emotionally, he's in a place where, because of this manipulation that Palpatine's put on him, he thinks there is no escape. And one of my favorite lines in Jedi is when him and Luke are getting ready. They're on Endor, and he's being, and they're having that conversation. And Luke says, "There's still good in you," and Vader says, "It's too late for me, my son."
Well, arguably Vader is minutes from death, so kinda.
Yeah.
Well, so it's interesting that you guys make mention of that. So a few weeks ago, near the end of or the middle of May, I was doing a writing workshop at our local library, and we were talking about character creation. And one of the things I shared for deeper insight is talking about the 5 things that every writer should know about their characters. And we talked. The thing we talked about was the dark moment story, the lie that they believe, the wound they suffered, the resulting flaw, and the resulting fear. Now, what's interesting is all 5 of these can be applied to Vader and to some extent Maul, but I'm curious. This is my question for you guys. Where would these apply for Palpatine?
Because Palpatine has suffered no wound. I mean, he was born wealthy, grew up wealthy. The only thing that causes him real pain in the novel is when his father threatens him with separation from Ego Damask, Darth Plagueis.
Right.
And as a result, Palpatine kills his entire family. So there's that. But could it be called a wound? You know, like you don't get to do everything you want to do. Oh no, I'm killing everybody now.
Let's think about the psychology of Palpatine. Palpatine is more or less a sociopath and a psychopath. Okay. Okay. He knows, to some extent, he knows that what he's doing is bad and wrong. He doesn't care. Right. He enjoys it. And chances are, if he was this way and becomes this much of a true believer, chances are he was probably born with that psychopathy. That's the main difference between a sociopath and a psychopath. And so I think that the wound that he suffers is the fact that he's told that he can't do whatever the heck he wants when he wants to do it by his father. And the fact that his father probably has a lot of high expectations for him to stay in line with the legacy of the Palpatine name. And he's got other aspirations for how he wants to acquire a legacy and the kind of power and the kind of authority that he wants to have. So when he's told no, when you're dealing with someone who's a narcissist and you're dealing with someone who's a sociopath or a psychopath,
and who's training in the dark side,
who's training in the dark side, that becomes the wound. And so that's the wound that he suffers. And the lie that he believes from Plagueis is that he can have all of this. He just has to want it bad enough. He just has to make it happen.
Is that a lie though?
Yeah, because at the end of it, what's it gain him? Death twice.
Granted, yeah.
His dark moment story,
again, though, stop shooting lightning. That's all. Like the end of 9. That's all you had to do was quit.
Yeah,
I think. Well,
Force choke. This is where Vader had it right. Force choke.
yeah. For God's sake, you know what I think is funny? I make this joke. Like force choke is a targeted compression, right here. That exact same compression, 4 inches north, force stroke. I think it would work much better. Imagine if you could grab a fistful of somebody's brain and squeeze it. You know, and why not? I mean, it's easier to go, but that's that same skill could really be applied in a number of ways.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I think there's only 2 points in Palpatine's life where he makes a misstep, and it is at the end of 6 and the end of 9.
Yeah.
And whenever I'm cosplaying, I get very irritable when people bring up the end of 6. I'm like, it's just very bad taste. You know, at this point, we all know how it ended, right? But I think at the end of 9, arguably, he was okay with dying. And I'm really interested to see if they actually go through with another trilogy with Rey, like in her power. Because if you look at it, so Palpatine died. But he was such a true believer. Palpatine ended the Skywalker line. He ended the Solo line. Like the two family bloodlines that most opposed him in the height of his power. He has snuffed them both out. And presumably the Grand Master of the New Jedi Order, while she's taken the name Skywalker, it's just on paper. She is, they say granddaughter, but biologically she is the daughter of Sheev Palpatine. There's got to be something in these movies that harkens back to that. Like, I think Palpatine would be satisfied to know that his direct one generation descendant of the most powerful Sith to exist is sitting on the Jedi throne. I think he'd be, you know what? I had a good run. Fine. Let's see what happens with my girl, because she has got to feel the pull of the dark side. Because as you said, Garrett, I think that Palpatine was born to it. And if he's born to it, I'm not a proponent of the Force being hereditary. I've never been a fan of that. Like, everybody insisted Rey had to be Luke's daughter or something. I didn't like that at all.
Right,
yeah.
And I never knew where it came from. In the original trilogy, we know that there's 10,000 Jedi extant at the beginning of episode 1, and of those 10,000, 1, maybe 2 have ever reproduced. That's Ki-Adi-Mundi, and I think Mace Windu was allowed to. It's not. I don't know if it's canonical that he had a child, but Mace Windu's his species is inherently force sensitive. So I'm not sure if we could call it hereditary or not. And Ki-Adi-Mundi, his species reproduces so slowly, the Jedi made a dispensation. I think Adi-Mundi had 3 children, but we don't know that any of them are force users. So really, we can't say that the force is hereditary because we only know of 2 force sensitive people who have reproduced.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it would make sense. Well, no, actually, if you go back into the Clone War, the Dark Horse Clone Wars comics, and granted, I don't know how Disney views them as canon anymore. I don't think they do. Mm-hmm. But
I think only that Darth Maul book is canon. They like that one exception.
Yeah. Who's the Kefar Jedi? The dreadlocks and the stripe across his face.
If you hadn't asked me, I'd have known it.
Huh?
He's all over Dark Disciple. Darn it.
Yeah.
Yes.
He
he actually ends up having a kid, but he does so with like a smuggler gal that he's kind of become entangled with while he's been working as a double agent for the Jedi. And
Quinlan Voss.
Yes. Thank you. Who we see canonically.
I had to Google Dark Disciple dude.
Dark Disciple dude.
Yeah, you actually get to see Quinlan Voss in the background of Mos Espa.
Okay. I was not aware of that.
Yeah, he pops up. It's a blink and you miss it thing. But yeah, I can't remember which volume of the Clone Wars it is, but he does have a child with this gal, and they go off and they live, and he survives Order 66, from what I understand.
Has it been revealed yet whether or not Hera Syndulla's child is force sensitive?
They alluded to that in the Ahsoka series, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah, I think they did allude to
it. To see how that works out. Well, I know that we're coming up on time. I just wanted to summarize, if I may,
with regards to Ki-Adi-Mundi, he was allowed to marry 5 women with whom he fathered 7 children.
7. Go ahead. I call him Mac Tonight. Do you remember the old McDonald's commercials?
Yes.
I call him Jedi Master Mac Tonight. As a admitted Palpatine cheerleader, and I should say, I like my evil fictional. Some people get too far into it. Like, I've joined a couple Sith roleplay groups and got to drop right back out. Like, oh, you guys, no, don't take that not so seriously. They're just toys, guys. But as a Palpatine cheerleader, I have said, and I stand by this, every major plot point that takes place in every Star Wars movie is done at the direction of or to the benefit of Emperor Palpatine.
Mm-hmm.
Actions taken in movies he is not present are done to impress him or to please him. Mm-hmm. Every major plot point in the entire Clone Wars is something that he has administrated or directed himself. He plays chess with the whole universe, and he's both sides. And he's already decided that Black is going to win. And I think he's such a potent villain. He is the trope definer for evil emperor. If you look up TV tropes, evil emperor, he's no longer the picture he used to be. But if you look up at the emperor, there's a line that says, if a character is called the emperor, chances are they are super evil. I mean, like between Warhammer 40K, Dune, but Star Wars is the one that everybody knows. Like people say, who do you cosplay as? I say the emperor. They don't say, oh, really? God Emperor of Dune or like Nero? No, I'm the Emperor. Thank you very much.
Yes.
And I think he's such a potent villain and such an amazing character. And a lot of that, Ian McDiarmid you can put all of that at his feet. He's a West End trained Shakespearean actor. When he's on screen, the whole story revolves around him.
Yeah.
And it's been a joy to watch. It's been a joy to watch that develop over the years. And I was disappointed that Darth Plagueis wasn't kept canon, but I was so gratified. They were going to make a television show showing Palpatine's fall to the dark side. And they were talking about making it be over childhood heartbreak. It was a near miss. You know, like I talk a lot of trash about, like, oh, he's not your Luke. You don't get to be mad what they did to Luke Skywalker. But boy, if they made Palpatine get his heart broken and turn to the dark side, I will go back to Stargate. I swear
it. Well, yeah, just getting back to what you were talking about there just for a second. Just the fact that for the longest time he was just the Emperor. Like, we didn't have a name. I don't think it was.
You had to buy the mail-in figure to get his name.
Yeah, yeah, and for most people, it was just the Emperor. And yeah, because he's never in the original trilogy. He's never mentioned by name. He's always just the Emperor, which makes him even more evil and more mysterious. And you know,
that was something funny to me. People would get mad at the end of Last Jedi. At the end of Last Jedi, that we don't learn more about Snoke. We didn't even know Palpatine's name until 1999, guys.
Yeah.
Like, give it a minute.
Yeah.
Well, it was interesting because, like, I remember, you know, growing up before Episode 1 ever came out, and having, like, I used to do Star Wars RPG with friends from high school. And
which one? D20 or Tip or West End?
Let me see. I've got the book right here. It is West End.
Yeah.
And like we had, I mean, all sorts of stuff. I mean, granted, it was all set during the Rebellion era or somewhere within that span of time, but we that was actually the first time I ever heard the name Palpatine. And it wasn't from a book, it wasn't from a figurine. It was the fact that the people that I was playing with knew a little bit more about the lore than I did, and that's how I got into knowing the lore.
Sure.
Yeah. I think I first learned the name when I believe I was reading the novelization of Return of the Jedi, and they mentioned his name in there. I believe they mentioned I think Luke calls him Emperor at one point, calls him Emperor Palpatine. Oh, Brian went.
I'm still here.
Okay.
Probably blowing his nose. Oh,
nope. That's my guy.
Is that
I sent away proofs of. That's the proofs of purchase one with Kane. I had to take him down off of his lighted stand.
Nice.
What year is that?
That's what I learned. Sorry?
What year is that?
That's the 83 one. Wow. They're not that rare, honestly. I love it, but you can usually find them for $15, $20 on eBay.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah, there were a lot of them. If you're looking for one that's still in the shipping package that Kenner mailed them, which of course I tore it open. I'm not going to get too far into the toy section here, but I've got a few. I have a Clone Wars Darth Sidious, which they made very few of at the end of the run. It's about a $250 figure. That one I'll leave in the box, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's where I knew. And it was funny to me. My first realization that I was maybe more into this fandom than some, I guess, was at Episode 1 in 1999 when they introduced Senator Palpatine, and I go, ha! And nobody else in the theater knew who that was. And I'm like, it's the same actor, guys. Read a book, Lana.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous. How could you not know?
One thing I did want to note with regards to Palpatine is the design of his lightsabers.
Yes, I want to talk about that too.
Because like one of the things I thought was really cool was the fact that he used the iridium, the gold plating,
mm-hmm.
and which was like a huge visual upset for Jedi, because that kind of plating on a lightsaber was for like really like high level Jedi who had earned a specific right to do so, to have that particular kind of metal applied to their lightsaber. And the fact that he went and did that, not being a Jedi, is the visual
petty
representation of a slap to the face.
It's galactically petty.
And the very fact that if you read anything about, he hated lightsabers. He thought they were beneath him, but yet he was a master at almost every form of lightsaber combat.
He's so good at it.
Just as a slap in the face to the Jedi. Like, he's like, I hate this. I don't like to do it. but I can kick your butt in every style there is.
Additionally, I've seen this discussed. Jedi lightsabers tend to be tools. They are utilitarian.
Yes.
Palpatine's is a work of art. Now, it looks a little bit like the Golden Girls join the dark side. I get it. And it looks very embarrassing as you take it through TSA. It looks kind of a little embarrassing on a TSA scanner. But Palpatine's is a work of art. It's not a tool. It's an artist's instrument.
Yeah.
And to the same end, not only the material but the design, and he made it himself. And that's kind of something I laugh about in Star Wars. I feel like people in Star Wars either live longer or learn faster than humans on Earth, because like everybody you meet is a starship pilot. How did you become so good at being a starship pilot while also being an electrical engineer who can make a lightsaber? And by the way, you're also a historian and you can fight. Like, there's so many people in Star Wars. Admittedly, they're all heroes, but it's funny to me to see how many lifelong careers an Earthling would have to be one base level Star Wars character.
Yeah.
But all of that aside, I appreciate the opportunity to talk about Palpatine, and I can go I could take an hour away from you. I think I've talked about it previously, but the last thing I wanted to touch on was just real shortly, the timing of Palpatine's reveal of him being a Sith Lord to Anakin. It's critical when he does it. Yoda is off planet, Kenobi's off planet, only Mace Windu is going to be in this fight. And he needs that to be the case, because when Anakin chooses between light and dark, Palpatine needs it to be between Palpatine and Windu. So it's an amazing, amazing timing, and it disappoints me that I feel like George Lucas is almost unaware that he did that. Because George Lucas has said canonically that he considers Mace Windu to have won that fight. Whereas to me, it's patently obvious that Palpatine needed Mace Windu to disarm him and have him in a point of weakness when Anakin enters. Anakin sees a tableau that Palpatine has set up, and we know that because Palpatine, so what? He's disarmed. He doesn't need the lightsaber, and as soon as Anakin does what he wants, he hits him with the lightning. He didn't need the lightsaber in the first place.
Right.
And we see on that first pass when Palpatine does the little 720 spin screeching, he kills the other three Jedi without a breath. Like, they are just one hit down. He doesn't even attack Windu. He doesn't even try for Windu because Anakin's not there yet. And the timing of that is, I think, the pinnacle of Palpatine's planning. He knows exactly when this needs to happen, and it's right now. And it's so important to him that he does when he tells Anakin he's a Sith, he reminds Anakin to report it. Don't forget when you report this to the Jedi that it has to be now, to go quick before Kenobi comes back. He can't have Anakin choosing between him and Kenobi.
Yeah.
So he's a brilliant character. He's brilliantly written. And I think he's the best, one of the best villains in fiction. And I saw an amazing interview with McDiarmid at Star Wars Celebration 19, where Warwick Davis asked him, tell us a little bit about what you bring to the character. And McDiarmid says, and that amazing voice he says, "Do you know, it's interesting. I've played gods and poets and emperors and kings and angels and butlers, and even so with all those characters, who do you suppose people always ask me about? It's always the Emperor, the most despicable character in all of science fiction, perhaps all of fiction. What do you think of that? What do you think that says about your psychology?" And I'm in the back of the auditorium like, "Hey, what are you talking about? Why would you accept my friend request? I know you've seen it." But it is interesting, like, how much work he's put into creating that character. But even he knows the character's bad. And if you've ever read about it, I've seen him do this, where people will ask him to like do the lightning hands or whatever for a photo op. Oh, no, I don't do that. It's just a character. So, but it's amazingly done, and we owe Ian McDiarmid a great debt for making that character. While he is a cartoonish, cackling villain, he is also the driving force between most of the conflict in the entire Star Wars saga.
Yes. Well, this has been a fun discussion. So
I don't have that much to say about any other character, so I'm looking forward to further discussions on characters where you guys can educate me.
Yeah. So let's wrap things up. Garrett, why don't you tell the people out there where they can find you at?
All right. Well, you guys can find me on Instagram and X at GKJ_publishing, where I talk about my books, The Archives of a Sync Ran, as well as my YouTube series called The Right Way, where we talk book recs, author interviews, and creative writing tips. I'm actually getting close to the end of season 6, so I'm looking forward to that, having some time off.
Yeah. Brian, what about yourself?
I and my colleagues can be found administering the Sith Library and Archives on Facebook. It's primarily run by my colleagues at this point on account of I have a child, but it's a great collection of curated Jedi art, culture, and discussion. So I hope you guys will come by and see us.
Definitely. As for us right here, of course, we are on. You can contact our email at warthestars1@gmail.com. That is also our handle on Twitter. Instagram, we are at War of the Stars. War of the Stars 1, that's with a little underscore, so it's war_of_the_stars 1. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see it at the little ticker there. YouTube was at War of the Stars. It is now at SW Child for my other show, Star Wars The Eyes of a Child, where myself and my daughter are going through the Clone Wars in chronological order. Next week, I will not be here, so these two gentlemen will be taking control of the show. It is co-host choice episode where one of us will choose the topic. Interesting to see what you guys decide to talk about next week. It should be fun. But I will be on vacation.
We'll probably talk about Spaceballs.
Who would win? I would be here for that. I'm a fan.
Who would win, Lord Helmet or Darth Vader?
Tricky.
Ooh, the Schwartz versus the Force.
What level of dad jokes would be implemented too? Like Vader's got some. He's got some puns there too. I feel like
all levels will be appreciated.
Perhaps if Mel Brooks writes for Vader, and Irvin Kershner writes for Dark Helmet.
Oh, dude, that would be great.
It depends. Now, if it's Vader, if it's the Vader that is in the Lego, the Star Wars Lego
yes.
sorts, that Vader is hilarious. I love it. Anyway, also, don't forget to go to spreadshirt.com/shop/War of the Stars to get shirts like this and other War of the Stars apparel. We have this design. We have a couple other designs too. And I'm going to be working on hopefully trying to get a couple other designs added to it. Or you can go to kofi.com/War of the Stars and support us there. That is about it. With that being said, remember, as always, this is not just my Star Wars. This is not just your Star Wars. This is our Star Wars. Until next time, may the Force be with you.
Chewie, we're home.